But at the moment, it's really not too bad. I have to say, I can understand why they're not starting this race under the safety car, because visibility is just about bearable. And there's not a lot of standing water. I went round in an old-timer W196 Mercedes-Benz an hour or so ago, and there is some standing water in small patches, but not enough to get these cars up on top of the water and aquaplaning. So I think from a safety point of view, a normal start is perfectly acceptable.
Now, it's reasonable to expect in these conditions that the two McLarens on the full wet weather tyres with the maximum depth grooves to clear water off the track will sprint away, maybe even from Michael Schumacher. Remember, Damon Hill, as far as we know, is on wet weather tyres too. But if Schumacher has got it right, and it does start to dry out a bit, and it is brightening a little, the rain is still falling, the track is very wet, but it is brightening and might clear up a bit, then Schumacher could be quids in.
Well, looking at the circuit conditions, I think anybody who's currently got intermediate bolted onto his car is going to be feeling pretty pleased with himself.
Well, we know the answer for that. He hasn't, Mika Häkkinen.
Look at Häkkinen's eyes, just staring there as he's just watching the road closely and then going over to find his grid slot. I'm expecting Michael Schumacher to have a massive attempt to get Damon Hill dispatched so he can chase after those McLarens as soon as possible.
As ever, watch the lights, 5 on, and then they will all go out. A pause of up to 3 seconds, 44 laps, the Belgian Grand Prix, the race which is crucial to the World Championship. Häkkinen on the left, Coulthard on the right. Yes, yes, it's go! And Coulthard drags. Häkkinen gets away well. Look at Eddie Irvine coming up on the inside. Villeneuve goes up into second position. Schumacher is down into about 6th position. Bad start by the Ferrari. Great start by Eddie Irvine. Villeneuve, look at Villeneuve, and into the wall. Who was that?
Coulthard in the wall.
David Coulthard into the wall. They'll stop the race.
They'll have to red flag this.
Terrible. Look, oh, this is quite appalling. This is the worst start for a Grand Prix that I have ever seen in the whole of my life.
Total carnage. David Coulthard went off up the hill very early on, and then they just all piled into him in the poor visibility, and they have no ability to stop. The tyres are cold, and everything locks up, and he just slides straight into the accident.
Yeah, the race stopped, of course. Mika Salo, you saw, walk away, and he had a gigantic crash yesterday. Well, it's going to take an enormous time to clear all this lot up. Drivers will be rushing back now to the pits, and that's Jos Verstappen down there. Barrichello, I apologise. Well, running back, there's Mika Salo in the black overalls, and getting his steering wheel off there was Esteban Tuero. That's Takagi in the green helmet, and of course they're running back now to get into their spare cars, which won't necessarily have been set up. And if 2 cars in the same team have been damaged, it's quite conceivable that one of them won't be able to start.
Yes, I think they're trying to...
Eddie Irvine limping, you see, on the left. And the 2 Prost drivers, that's Olivier Panis, and there's Barrichello.
Barrichello trying to say, look, I'm okay, I was holding my arm, but there's something red on the back of his overalls, look, I don't know what that might be. I don't think it's blood, but there's something very much red on there. The two Prost both in the action, but Barrichello, they're saying, look, no, I'm fine, I want to get back and get into the spare car. But that is an incredible carnage. I think it started with David Coulthard getting on the power and losing the back end straight into the wall.
That's Coulthard's car.
But that was hit several times, Murray, after he hit the wall. Now watch it now, look, David Coulthard over on the your right of the picture, swings across and just lights up the rear wheels, had a big frontal impact into the wall anyway. And now the real action starts. David goes over to the other side, and then in the middle, somebody's braking. Eddie Irvine gets caught up in the Benetton, and they just keep smashing into each other. Look at Salo's car, his second big accident of the weekend. And then after that, total carnage. Nothing they can do.
But
Rosset just smashing into the back of the lot of them. Big accident.
Damon Hill got through all that lot all right. You see, there is Tuero in the background. The problem is, of course, when you're going at that speed on a slippery track and you've got no traction at all and a lot of power going through, there is absolutely nothing you can do about it.
The two Prost drivers talking to each other as they're climbing up the hill. I'd be inclined to be the first one back to the pits and jump in one of them. I had this situation once at Brabham. You've got to get back and be the first one there. There's only one spare car.
The spare Prost is actually set up for Jarno Trulli, who started higher on the grid. He started from 13th place on the grid. And so Olivier Panis, who was 15th, probably won't have first claim.
And I doubt they'll give Irvine the spare Ferrari in case Michael Schumacher needs it on the next restart. So Irvine could well be out of this race.
As Jos Verstappen drives in, we saw him just missing a bit of debris, but you noticed the right rear tyre looked to me as though he got a puncture. Olivier Panis on the right, Jarno Trulli on the left. They're both perfectly all right, mercifully. But as I say, it's all hands to the pump now for the marshals and all the people who are responsible for operating the cranes and the heavy lifting equipment, who've got to get the cars clear. Johnny Herbert running back to get in the Sauber. Now, the Sauber team have got the car set up for a Lacey, the spare one. Rubens Barrichello and Ricardo Rossi talking the two Brazilians.
Yes, I do think that Barrichello is bleeding. He's cut something, but Eddie apparently not limping quite so heavily. I assume Ferrari have only one spare car here.
Look at it.
And I would be surprised, because we could have a replay of this in the next race, and then Michael Schumacher needs the spare car for the World Championship. So I'd be surprised if they let Irvine have that car.
Well, there's no doubt about the fact that his car won't be restarting. Very, very badly damaged on the left rear. Jackie Stewart talking to Rubens Barrichello, the senior of his two drivers, and Eddie Irvine on the right talks with Jean Todt, the Ferrari team boss. Now, what's Todt saying to Eddie Irvine? Is he saying, get in the spare car, Eddie, or is he saying, sorry, not for you? We've got to hold it for Michael. I'm not sure what the rule is on this. Can they actually stop him from taking part in the race if there's a car available for him?
I doubt there is a rule to cover that eventuality. I think that'll be a team situation.
Well, here we go again.
Damon Hill had a very poor start in third place.
Straight down towards us, you see Mika Hakkinen on in front, Eddie Irvine coming through, and Coulthard is behind Hakkinen. Eddie Irvine dives up to the right, and Villeneuve goes through on the left. Damon Hill and Ralf Schumacher turn round. Now it's at this point that David Coulthard puts the power. Watch the McLaren in the background. There he goes across the track, into the wall, across the path of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Off go the wheels, into the Armco goes David. Damon Hill goes through. There's Eddie Irvine's Ferrari being hit by Mika Salo's arrows, which also hits David Coulthard's McLaren, which had already been virtually written off. Tuero just hit somebody's front wing. There's an arrows in front of us. I should think at least 10 cars have been really badly affected by that crash. It reminds me of the appalling crash at Indianapolis some years ago. But mercifully, no, Eddie looking very quiet and calm in the pits. Does that mean he's not starting, or that he's just getting himself together to restart?
Well, there are other cars at the end of the pit lane. Trulli's managed to get himself in the Prost. We can see Wirtz at the end of the pit lane, ready to rejoin. They should be allowed to go round and reform on the grid, because obviously the race was stopped before the end of the first complete lap. So it's a whole new race, and now we'll have to see. I didn't see any sign of Eddie Irvine preparing to get in the T car. Normally there'd be frantic activity, and well, there's so many. That car's
one of the Benettons.
I thought I saw some flames in the back of it. I thought I saw some flames coming out, just creeping out behind the bodywork there.
The point is that it's happened once. There's no reason, to be honest, why it shouldn't happen again. But James Allen's got some news for it. What is it, James?
Well, I'm down at the scene of the accident now. There are, as I count, 9 cars that have been damaged in this incident. We've got obviously arrows. We've seen a Prost. Both the Tyrrells seem to have been pretty badly smacked up. One of the Stewarts, one of the Benettons, is there as well. But it's worth making the point that it seems that none of the drivers are still in the cars. They all seem to have got out and have made their way back to the pits via the medical centre, no doubt. And also we saw some bits flying off some of the cars up towards the debris fence, where there's a great big crowd, of course, on the outside of the straight. And looking across into the grandstands, it looks to me, and I'm very glad to tell you this, that no one in the grandstands appears to have been hit by any flying debris.